The accused are acquitted from the charges.
The moment those accused of responsibility for the death of 1,000 people were acquitted, the victims' families were in utter shock. Hysteria all over the courtroom. They accused the Egyptian government of manipulating the verdict to clear Mamdouh Ismail, the owner of the company operating the ferry. Immediately after the disaster 2.5 years ago, Mr. Ismail fled Egypt and is said to be living in the United Kingdom. He was an influential figure in the ruling National Democratic Party and a friend of politicians in high places.
1,035 people drowned and the perpetrators are acquitted. I can't believe it. To God only I complain.
The judge was pressurized. Mamdouh Ismail and Mubarak bought him.
Before the verdict, the families had gathered outside the court chanting slogans calling for justice to be done. They are the remaining few who refused to accept the modest compensations offered to them. The court had been told that the ship carrying mainly Egyptian laborers from Saudi Arabia had not been seaworthy, and despite that, the Egyptian authorities allowed it to operate. The court was also told that there weren't enough lifeboats and that rescue efforts were delayed for days. But the judge said the owners were not responsible for the disaster. The Egyptian maritime authorities testified that the company had properly reported the sinking of the ferry and that they were not responsible for the inadequate rescue attempts. Maritime authority staff are currently facing an internal investigation. But the victims' lawyers insist the verdict was not based on legal grounds.
I think the judge was under political pressure. Had he only looked at the documents, they wouldn't have been acquitted. The prosecution will appeal this verdict for sure, and we will do the same.
52-year-old Mohammed Hassan Nasser is a university professor who lost his wife and 2 children in the disaster. Hasna, who was 16, and Hazim, only 3, had traveled on the ferry regularly with their mother. It was cheaper for them and the many Egyptians who work in Saudi Arabia. The 3 had scrambled into a lifeboat when the ferry sank, but one of the survivors said that all had died of cold after spending 3 days at sea in winter weather. For Nasser, the verdict was a shock.
I just complain to God. God is just.
Here in this modest cemetery lie the body remains of those who drowned in the ferry in 2006. Many have never been accounted for. The blame was solely put on the captain of the ferry, who is also unaccounted for. For those who died, they may have found the eternal peace. But for the bereaved families, this judgment means only one thing. Torment continues. I'm el-Kahky, Al Jazeera, Hurghada, Egypt.